Have you ever wondered why intimate touch feels so meaningful? Not just emotionally, but biologically. Why some types of closeness seem to light up the nervous system and shift mood, energy, and connection in ways that go beyond words. Today, we're going to explore a question that sounds personal, maybe even a bit surprising: why many men enjoy giving oral affection, and what every woman should know about the physiology, communication, and relationship context behind it. At first glance, this might feel like an unusual topic for a channel rooted in metabolic health, hormonal balance, and longevity. But if we think about sexual response the way we think about any body system, through the lens of physiology, neurochemistry, and human behavior, it becomes deeply relevant. Sexual health is tightly linked to hormones like testosterone and estrogen, to nervous system regulation, to metabolic state, and to the health of connective tissues and circulation. Understanding these pieces isn't just about desire, it's about healthy aging, relationship satisfaction, and overall well-being. Here's what's really going on inside your body when we talk about sexual affection and why it matters. Sexual response isn't arbitrary. It's governed by networks of nerves, endocrine signals, and psychosocial cues. Neurotransmitters like dopamine and oxytocin reward intimacy and social bonding. Circulation and nitric oxide pathways influence arousal and sensation. Hormonal rhythms shape libido over time. All of these systems are modifiable, for better or worse, through lifestyle, stress, sleep, nutrition, and communication. In this talk, we'll cut through the myths and misunderstandings that often surround conversations about sexual desire, especially later in life. We'll unpack 6 science-backed insights that help explain not just what people do, but why the body responds the way it does. You'll learn how hormones, nervous system health, and metabolic context shape people's preferences, why communication is physiologically necessary, not just socially polite, and what practical steps couples can take to increase comfort, pleasure, and mutual satisfaction in a way that supports overall health. By the end of this video, you won't just understand one person's behavior. You'll understand the biology and psychology behind sexual receptivity and intimacy, so you can approach these conversations grounded in curiosity rather than confusion. And just as importantly, you'll have specific tools, from timing and communication protocols to lifestyle considerations, that honor both partners' well-being. Before we dive deeper, let's map out what we'll cover. These are the 6 key insights that will give you a clear physiological understanding of sexual preference, desire, and intimacy. Grounded in science and practical health principles, hormonal signals drive desire and reward. How testosterone, estrogen, oxytocin, and dopamine shape motivation, pleasure, and intimacy behaviors. Nervous system wiring matters. The role of the parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, nerve density, and sensitivity in sexual response. Circulation and nitric oxide are key players. How blood flow, endothelial function, and vascular health influence sensation and arousal. Metabolic health influences libido. Insulin balance, cortisol, and fat metabolism affect hormone production and sexual motivation. Psychological and relational context amplifies response. Stress, emotional safety, and communication shape neurochemistry and the ability to experience pleasure. Practical lifestyle and nutritional tools can enhance intimacy. Evidence-based protocols, including timing, nutrient support, and daily habits that support sexual health and connection. Each of these points is interconnected. Think of them as gears in a finely tuned machine. If one is out of alignment, the system doesn't function optimally. But when we understand the root causes, we can optimize them naturally, without relying on medication or quick fixes. In the sections ahead, we'll unpack each point using simple analogies, visual explanations, and actionable steps you can implement immediately. You'll gain both insight into why the body works this way and how to influence it for long-term vitality, energy, and satisfaction. Let's start with a foundational truth about human sexual behavior that often goes unspoken. Sexual desire and preference are deeply biological processes, rooted in hormones, neurochemistry, and brain circuits, not random habits or mere preferences. To understand why many men enjoy giving oral affection, we need to begin here, with the physiology of hormones and reward systems that fuel desire, motivation, and pleasure. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Hormones aren't just messengers. They're modulators of whole brain networks that govern what you want and crave. In men, testosterone is the primary androgen that influences sexual motivation and readiness. Testosterone acts both centrally, in brain areas that govern sexual fixation and anticipation, and peripherally, in tissues like the genitalia, to prime the system for sexual engagement. MDPI. Think of testosterone like the starting voltage on a circuit board. If it's too low, signals struggle to fire. If it's healthy and balanced, the system is responsive and adaptable. What the research shows is that testosterone increases the responsiveness of neurons in key motivational regions like the medial preoptic area and hypothalamus, where sexual behavior is integrated. This doesn't just affect physiology, it shapes motivation toward intimacy. MDPI. Now, hormones are only one piece. The other critical piece is neurotransmitters like dopamine, the reward chemical. Dopamine is released in pathways that signal pleasure, motivation, and reward, especially in the mesolimbic system, a core part of the brain's reward circuitry. PubMed. Here's a simple analogy. Hormones set the stage. Dopamine directs the play. Testosterone and other hormones make the body and brain receptive. Dopamine turns that receptivity into wanting and seeking behaviors, including sexual engagement. PubMed. What does this look like in real life? In animal models and human data, dopamine release increases anticipatory arousal and motivation, especially when a potential partner is visible or tactile cues are present. The same circuitry that lights up for food, social reward, and achievement also lights up for sexual reward. PubMed. So why is this relevant to oral affection? Because it's not just about genital stimulation. Many men experience strong neurochemical reward, not only from achievement in intercourse, but from sensory cues, closeness, and focused attention on sensitive zones, especially when paired with emotional connection and communication. The reward circuit lights up when the brain detects salient, rewarding social and sensory input, and that can include the tactile and social elements of close physical affection. PubMed. This is also where oxytocin enters the picture. Oxytocin is often called the bonding hormone because it enhances social trust and emotional attunement during intimate moments, released during touching, orgasm, and close physical interaction. While dopamine drives wanting, oxytocin reinforces connection. Le Moyne College. Here's a practical takeaway. If you want to naturally support healthy hormonal balance and reward responses, which can influence desire, pleasure, and satisfaction, consider these targeted daily habits. Optimize sleep quality. Testosterone synthesis and dopamine receptor sensitivity both depend on regular deep sleep. Support nitric oxide pathways. Good circulation amplifies sensitivity and arousal. Eat nitrate-rich greens like spinach and beets. Maintain healthy metabolic health. Insulin balance protects sex hormone production. High sugar and processed foods can blunt testosterone over time. Prioritize stress regulation. Chronic cortisol suppresses sex hormones and dopamine responsiveness. Practices like breathwork, meditation, and strategic exercise help. Understanding sexual desire through this scientific lens, hormones, dopamine reward, and neural motivation circuits transforms how we view intimacy. It's not about labels or habits. It's about biological drivers that can be tuned with lifestyle and communication to support connection, pleasure, and mutual satisfaction. Let's now zoom in on a system that often gets overlooked in conversations about sexual health, the nervous system. Most people think sexual desire is purely hormonal or psychological, but the nervous system, specifically how the parasympathetic and sympathetic branches are balanced, is fundamental to both sensation and motivation. Here's what's really going on inside your body. The parasympathetic nervous system, often called the rest and digest system, facilitates relaxation, blood flow, and receptive sensation. In contrast, the sympathetic nervous system, the fight or flight branch, is critical for arousal and focus, but when chronically activated, can inhibit sexual response. PubMed.cenco.cbi.nlm.nh.gov. Think of it like traffic lights in your body. The parasympathetic system is green, allowing blood and nerve signals to flow freely to sensitive areas. The sympathetic system is red, slowing down or stopping that flow when stress is high. If your sympathetic red light is stuck on due to chronic stress, work pressure, or metabolic dysfunction, even high dopamine and testosterone won't translate into sexual motivation or enjoyment. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nh.gov. Now, nerve density and sensitivity also play a critical role. Areas with high nerve endings, like the clitoral glands or penile frenulum, are wired to provide rich sensory feedback. These nerve endings communicate directly with the spinal cord and brainstem, triggering dopamine release, oxytocin bonding, and the pleasure circuits we discussed in the previous section. PubMed, ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Here's a simple analogy. Imagine your nervous system as a high-definition cable network. If the wiring is clear and signals flow freely, sensory information is transmitted efficiently, and your brain can respond accurately. If there's interference, poor circulation, nerve damage, or chronic sympathetic activation, the signal is muddled and pleasure or motivation is reduced. What does this mean in practice? For intimacy, it explains why some men may seek oral affection. The act stimulates rich sensory regions, activating reward circuits directly through well-innervated pathways. It's not just about behavior preference. It's a physiological response to high-density nerve feedback paired with bonding cues like oxytocin. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. So how can you naturally optimize nervous system responsiveness and sensory pleasure? Here are practical tools. Daily stress regulation. Practices like slow breathing, yoga, meditation, or brief walks shift your nervous system from chronic sympathetic dominance to a parasympathetic friendly state. Mindful touch exercises. Non-sexual skin-to-skin touch with a partner can train your nervous system to associate closeness with relaxation and pleasure. Movement and circulation. Moderate resistance or cardio exercise enhances nerve signaling by improving blood flow and mitochondrial function. Metabolic support. Stable blood sugar reduces sympathetic spikes caused by cortisol surges, supporting a calm, receptive nervous system. Targeted nerve care, nutrients like B vitamins, magnesium, and omega-3s support myelin health and nerve conduction. By viewing sexual response as a combination of hormone signals and nervous system wiring, we move beyond myths and start optimizing what's actually happening physiologically. When the nervous system is balanced, dopamine and oxytocin signals are amplified, sensations are richer, and the brain-body connection becomes intuitive, not forced. Understanding this mechanism helps explain behaviors that might otherwise seem confusing. It's not simply preference or habit, it's the brain and body rewarding precise neural and sensory patterns, a deeply biological process that can be naturally tuned with lifestyle and awareness. Now that we've covered hormones and the nervous system, let's focus on a critical but often overlooked factor: circulation and nitric oxide pathways. Blood flow is not just about cardiovascular health, it's central to sexual responsiveness, sensation, and overall intimacy. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Nitric oxide is a signaling molecule that relaxes blood vessels, improves endothelial function, and enhances blood delivery to tissues. In sexual physiology, NO is essential for arousal because it allows target tissues to engorge with blood, increasing sensitivity and pleasure. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Think of it with a simple analogy. Imagine trying to water a garden through a clogged hose. No matter how strong your pump is, hormones, or how eager the gardener is nervous system, the water won't reach the plants. Nitric oxide is the mechanism that keeps the hose clear, allowing signals and nutrients to reach the tissue efficiently. Research shows that men with better vascular function report higher sexual satisfaction and responsiveness, and these pathways are sensitive to lifestyle, diet, and age. Circulation is also influenced by exercise, endothelial health, and antioxidant status, which is why cardiovascular fitness is strongly correlated with libido and sexual pleasure. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Circulation affects more than genital tissue. It also influences nerve health and sensory feedback, amplifying pleasure signals sent to the brain. That means vascular health supports the entire chain of sexual responsiveness. Hormones prime the system, nerves relay the message, and blood flow delivers the sensation. Without this final piece, the signal is muted. So what can we do to naturally enhance nitric oxide and circulation? Here's a step-by-step approach. Nitrate-rich foods. Vegetables like spinach, beetroot, arugula, and celery provide dietary nitrates, which the body converts to NO. Even small daily servings improve endothelial function. Exercise strategically. High-intensity interval training, HIIT, and resistance training both boost nitric oxide production and improve vascular elasticity. Support antioxidants. Vitamin C and E, polyphenols from berries, and flavonoids from dark chocolate reduce oxidative stress that impairs NO signaling. Limit chronic metabolic stress. Insulin resistance, high sugar intake, and inflammation damage endothelial cells, reducing NO production. Focus on whole food carbohydrates and anti-inflammatory fats. Mindful timing. Sexual activity after moderate exercise, when circulation is naturally enhanced, can improve sensation and reward signaling. Here's an important nuance. Nitric oxide interacts with dopamine and oxytocin circuits we discussed earlier. When blood flow is optimized, sensory input is stronger, nerve signals fire more reliably, and the brain's reward system is more activated, creating a feedback loop that reinforces pleasure and motivation. PubMed.cbi.nlm.nih.gov. If this section resonates, remember, enhancing circulation isn't just about sexual responsiveness, it's about longevity, metabolic health, and energy. Improved endothelial function reduces cardiovascular risk, supports fat-burning physiology, and helps maintain hormone balance as we age. In other words, the same strategies that support intimacy also support overall health and vitality. Optimizing no pathways combined with hormones and nervous system balance completes the physiological foundation for sexual pleasure and intimacy. It's a clear example of how natural, evidence-based interventions can influence deeply personal aspects of human behavior. Now that we've covered hormones, nerves, and circulation, let's explore another critical piece of the puzzle: metabolic health. What many people don't realize is that libido, sexual desire, and even intimate motivation are tightly linked to how your body handles insulin, cortisol, and fat metabolism. Here's what's really going on inside your body. When insulin is chronically elevated, as happens with high sugar intake, frequent snacking, or insulin resistance, it can suppress testosterone production in men and disrupt estrogen balance in women. PubMed.ncbi.10nlm.nih.gov. Elevated insulin also increases inflammation, which interferes with vascular function and nerve sensitivity, reducing sexual responsiveness even if hormone levels are otherwise normal. Cortisol, the stress hormone, is another major player. Chronic stress triggers cortisol spikes that shut down reproductive hormone pathways. Your body interprets stress as a signal to prioritize survival over reproduction, and the result is diminished libido and reduced responsiveness. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Think of your metabolism like a well-tuned engine. If the fuel, glucose, and oil, hormones, are imbalanced, the engine sputters. Even if the driver is eager, dopamine, and the wiring is intact, nerves, the engine can't run efficiently. But when insulin is balanced, cortisol is regulated, and metabolic pathways are optimized, the system runs smoothly, and sexual desire naturally follows. Here's a simple analogy. Metabolic health is like fertilizing and watering a garden. Without proper soil, the seeds of hormonal motivation and nervous system responsiveness won't grow fully. With balanced nutrients, sleep, and lifestyle inputs, your garden flourishes, producing healthy energy, libido, and pleasure. Practical, evidence-based interventions for metabolic optimization include time-restricted feeding or intermittent fasting. Aligning meals to circadian rhythms supports insulin sensitivity and enhances hormonal balance. Low glycemic, nutrient-dense foods. Prioritize vegetables, fiber, healthy fats, and lean proteins to stabilize blood sugar and reduce chronic inflammation. Regular movement. Resistance training and moderate cardio improve insulin sensitivity and support nitric oxide production for circulation. Stress regulation. Techniques like breathwork, meditation, and even short nature breaks reduce cortisol, freeing reproductive hormone pathways. Targeted supplementation. Magnesium, chromium, omega-3 fatty acids, and vitamin D all support insulin sensitivity and hormone synthesis. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Why is this particularly relevant for sexual behavior, including oral affection? When metabolism is optimal, dopamine and oxytocin circuits are fully responsive, nerve sensitivity is maximized, and the body can sustain energy during intimate interactions. Men and women are more motivated to engage in affectionate behaviors that trigger reward and bonding pathways when their metabolic systems are balanced. A real-world takeaway. Couples who adopt metabolic-friendly habits often notice improvements in energy, mood, libido, and mutual satisfaction. This isn't just anecdotal. It's supported by research linking insulin sensitivity, stress regulation, and vascular health to sexual responsiveness across age groups. If this section has been insightful, remember, improving metabolic health isn't just about weight or energy. It's about enhancing desire, intimacy, and connection naturally. The body is a holistic system, and when metabolism, hormones, circulation, and nerves are aligned, sexual motivation and pleasure thrive. So far, we've explored hormones, nerves, circulation, and metabolism, the physiological backbone of sexual desire and responsiveness. But here's a key insight that often gets overlooked. Psychology and relational context profoundly shape how the body experiences pleasure and intimacy. Sexual behavior isn't just biology, it's also the product of the brain interpreting safety, connection, and emotional cues. Here's what's really going on inside your body. When a person feels emotionally safe and connected to their partner, the parasympathetic nervous system is more active. Dopamine pathways fire efficiently, and oxytocin is released. Oxytocin strengthens bonding, amplifies reward, and reduces fear or stress responses. Conversely, if there's mistrust, anxiety, or unresolved conflict, the sympathetic system dominates, and pleasure signals are suppressed. PubMed, NEBI.gov. Think of this with a simple analogy. The body is like a radio. Even if the transmitter, hormones, is strong and the wiring, nerves, is intact, static, stress, anxiety, emotional tension can block the signal. Emotional safety removes the static, allowing the music of intimacy to play clearly. Research shows that men report higher motivation for intimate behaviors, including oral affection, when they perceive reciprocal emotional connection and positive communication. Similarly, women experience greater arousal and responsiveness when their partner demonstrates attentiveness, care, and mutual respect. This is not just subjective, it's rooted in neurochemical feedback loops. Oxytocin release enhances dopamine reward, which reinforces behaviors that promote closeness. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. So, what practical steps can couples take to amplify these relational and psychological factors? Open communication protocols. Schedule intentional conversations about desires, boundaries, and comfort. Transparency reduces stress and sympathetic activation. Non-sexual touch, skin-to-skin contact, holding hands, or hugging for several minutes triggers oxytocin and primes the nervous system for pleasure. Mindful presence. During intimate moments, focusing attention on the partner's experience rather than internal worries enhances dopamine signaling and connection. Positive reinforcement. Expressing gratitude, acknowledgement, and affection strengthens emotional safety and encourages mutual responsiveness. Stress buffering together. Shared relaxation activities like walking, stretching, or breathing exercises reduce cortisol and allow the body's sexual reward circuits to function optimally. Here's an important nuance. Sexual behavior is not just a physical act. It's an interaction of mind, body, and relationship context. Even the most optimized hormonal and metabolic systems can underperform if emotional safety and trust are low. In other words, physiology and psychology are intertwined. If this resonates, take a moment today to try a small behavioral experiment. Share a 5-minute moment of uninterrupted, affectionate touch with your partner and notice how it shifts your nervous system, mood, and motivation. These simple, consistent practices reinforce intimacy naturally, without relying on external aids or quick fixes. Understanding the psychological and relational dimension gives a new perspective on behaviors that might otherwise seem puzzling. It's not just preference or habit, it's the brain and body responding to safety, connection, and reward. Optimizing these factors allows affection, pleasure, and sexual motivation to thrive even as we age. Now that we've covered physiology, nervous system function, metabolism, and relational context, let's focus on practical tools you can implement today to naturally support intimacy, desire, and pleasure. These strategies aren't about quick fixes. They target root causes to enhance hormones, circulation, nerve function, and reward pathways simultaneously. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Every meal, habit, and lifestyle choice either supports or disrupts your hormonal, vascular, and neural systems. Nutrients and daily routines influence neurotransmitters like dopamine, bonding hormones like oxytocin, and structural components like nerve myelin and endothelial cells. Optimizing these factors naturally reinforces both sexual motivation and overall vitality. Let me explain with a simple analogy. Think of your body as a garden. Hormones are the seeds, circulation is the irrigation, nerves are the wiring for growth signals, and lifestyle inputs, diet, sleep, stress management, are the fertilizer and sunlight. When all these elements are in balance, your garden thrives, producing vibrant energy, desire, and intimacy. Here are actionable interventions supported by science. Diet for sexual and metabolic health. High-quality proteins. Eggs, fish, and lean meats provide amino acids for hormone synthesis. Nitrate-rich vegetables, beets, spinach, and arugula, enhance nitric oxide for circulation. Healthy fats, avocados, nuts, and olive oil support hormone production, particularly testosterone and estrogen. Polyphenols and antioxidants, berries, dark chocolate, and green tea reduce oxidative stress, preserving endothelial function. Supplement support. Magnesium supports nerve function, stress regulation, and testosterone production. Vitamin D, critical for hormone synthesis and vascular health. Omega-3 fatty acids, enhance circulation and reduce inflammation. B-complex vitamins support neurotransmitter synthesis for dopamine and serotonin pathways. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Exercise protocols. Resistance training boosts testosterone and dopamine signaling, improves circulation. Moderate cardio enhances endothelial function and nitric oxide availability. Mobility and flexibility work maintains nerve and connective tissue health for sensation and comfort. Sleep and circadian rhythm. Aim for 7 to 9 hours per night, ideally aligned with natural light-dark cycles. Deep sleep supports testosterone, cortisol regulation, and dopamine receptor sensitivity. Stress regulation routines. Daily breathwork, meditation, or yoga to reduce sympathetic dominance. Shared stress reduction practices with a partner amplify oxytocin and connection. Behavioral integration for intimacy. Schedule intentional non-sexual touch to prime the nervous system. Use mindful attention during sexual activity to enhance dopamine reward. Track lifestyle interventions and note improvements in energy, desire, and pleasure. Even small changes compound over time. If this section has been helpful so far, consider subscribing. I post daily insights on optimizing your physiology, metabolism, and relational health naturally. By applying these dietary, lifestyle, and behavioral strategies consistently, you're not just enhancing intimacy or sexual responsiveness, you're supporting overall metabolic health, hormone balance, circulation, and nervous system resilience. These changes ripple outward. Energy improves, fat metabolism becomes more efficient, stress regulation strengthens, and overall quality of life rises. The key takeaway: intimacy and sexual motivation aren't isolated behaviors. They are expressions of optimized physiology, mind, and lifestyle. When you approach your body holistically, pleasure, connection, and vitality are natural outcomes, not something you have to force or fix with external aids.